Three major resources that the Industrial Revolution used were iron, coal, and oil. Iron was used for trains and buildings, coal was used to power trains, and oil was an alternate source for coal, much more efficient. Now, here are four inventors and their inventions. They are Samuel F.B. Morse, Alexander Graham Bell, Henry Bessemer, and Thomas Alva Edison. So, Samuel F.B. Morse created the Morse code and the telegraph, which allowed making letters to anywhere you want. Henry Bessemer created a faster way to make steel. Alexander Graham Bell created the telephone. And Thomas Alva Edison created the light bulb along with the power plant to power the light bulb so that everyone can see in the dark. Business segment. 5 entrepreneurs: Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, J. Gould, and Henry Ford. Now, what do they all have in common besides being entrepreneurs? They're all very rich. Andrew Carnegie made steel a huge production. J.D. Rockefeller had the whole oil company, making him one of the richest people in all the world that ever existed. J.P. Morgan controlled the banks, and well, you control the banks, you got the money right there, right? You have Jay Gould, which was a railroad developer, a robber baron, and very rich. And you have Henry Ford, who made the cars, the Model T, and what is now used all over the assembly line. Those 5 people used the forms of business organizations, such as the monopoly, where they would monopolize different companies and as their own, take control of it, like McDonald's has over all the food supply. Conglomerate, which is 2 corporations which join together to make a bigger company. You have trusts, where you can buy off parts of the companies from as a major company buying from the little ones. And you have the holding company, which is a parent company or a united partnership of the company itself. These people had so much money that they had no idea what to do with it, because there was no taxes involved or imposed yet from it until the Civil War. Now, the conspicuous consumption is buying stuff to just show off how much money you have, which these guys did, because what else are you supposed to do? And then you have some people who, philanthropy, which is the generosity to needy people, generously just giving some money away, giving you a better reputation among the common folk. Segment 3. Urbanization. Urbanization had positive and negative effects throughout the lower class. The housing were the tenements in the slums of the lower class area, where it was all really muddy and area, where you had to fit 3 families into these little tiny apartments, which were the size of this room, which is enough for 1 person nowadays, but there they would fit 3 families, which is a huge amount of people in 1 room. The conditions that were there were really, really bad. The sanitation was awful, and there was disease running all over. Like rats coming here and there, just walking upon the streets. It was really that bad. And the working conditions were just as bad, because, well, now we would consider it just as bad because they have child labor, where you have these little tiny kids doing these giant working jobs, but since they were tiny kids, they didn't have to get paid as much as the bigger adult. The kids were very expendable, and so you would have their tiny hands, which are able to go inside the little machines to unclog whatever claw is in there, whatever thing is wrong with it. And if you didn't get your hand out in time, or if just your hand gets cut, then oh well, there goes your job and your 10 cents an hour. Or was it like 5 cents? I don't know, but it was a really low amount of pay, and the dangers were immense. Lastly, the political machines that occurred at such as Tammany Hall or Graft were just bribes by these mayors or these people who wanted to become more up in the government, so they would just like help the little people, the poorer people, and give them things so that they can vote for them, so that they can achieve their goal. And those were the negative effects of urbanization. The positive effects of urbanization, however, were the new technologies that were made, such as the elevators or the skyscrapers and the street lights that were made because of Alva Edison's power plant. So now everyone can see now. And the water and sewage systems, which are very helpful for sanitation. Now, what also came out of this was the cultural benefits, which would be the museums, the theaters, the parks, the libraries, and the new education that came upon the lower class. And all this stuff is more helpful to us today for historical reasons, but it wasn't really that beneficial for them. But for us, it would be considered a positive effect. Now, the philosophies that they had would be the Puritan work ethic, which would mean that hard work equals the salvation. Segment 4. Immigration. Immigration was a big thing in the United States because you have people coming from all over so that they can come here and maybe get a good life, a better life than they had there. Because the economy in Europe is not doing as well as it did in much before, or before and when the economy was strong. So they would actually spend all their money, or they would spend a large amount of money so that they can go from their place, or their country, to the Americas. And this happened a lot because the United States was the land of opportunity, where if you work hard you can get whatever you want. Just takes the same effort. Not really, but that's how it worked. Nativism was when the United States preferred their people who were born in the US, and they prioritized for them rather than all the immigrants who came in here. So the Native Americans had a better chance because they were born in the United States. The Know Nothing Party was a political party that flourished in the 1850s, which promoted the anti-immigration that occurred in the US. The Chinese Seclusion Act, or the Yellow Peril, of 1882 was when the US no longer needed the Chinese, and so they just tried to push them away and out of the country and just move them out because they didn't need them anymore. The Natural Origins Act was an act that made all immigrants just become much or very lower class than all the people who were born in the US. Specifically, Asians had it the worst. Assimilation is when all of the immigrants came into the United States to intertwine with our culture. The melting pot theory was where all the immigrants and all the Americans were to intertwine and create a new form of people. The salad bowl theory was when all the immigrants came to the US and still kept all their culture. Even if they married in more Americans, they still kept their culture in place. Segment 5, the final segment. The reaction segment. The whole reason for the Granger movement was because people were putting their own prices, such as the railroad, putting their own price on how much it costs per ticket. And then you have the Munn in Illinois case, where the Munn was a storage of grains, or he had a storage of grains, and he put way too high of a price, and many people complained, and he lost, and now he has to lower his price to the public standard. This also goes for the rest of the US as well. Unionism was also a thing, where people would join together to help other people, or other people in their group, do better in their jobs, so that they don't lose their jobs, or they can get better pays. Also, you can have the collective bargaining, where you have the wages are lowered, the housing, everything is all negotiated, so it's better for you. That's what the whole point of the union. For example, the Knights of Labor, where they defended people's jobs, and then you have the American Federation of Labor, another group, and you have the International Ladies Garment Working Union, which was specifically for women. Two early reformers in the reaction segment would be Thomas Nast and Jane Addams. Now, Thomas Nast was a political cartoonist, and Jane Addams was a woman who was a progressivism leader. And that concludes my history video documentary. Thank you, Miss Robertson, for letting me do this so late. Sorry, really sorry.